All right, man, peace. So, as we all know, very recently in the news, one of the major stories was a white nationalist rally that took place in Charlottesville, Virginia, in protest of the removal of the infamous former general of the Confederate Army, General Robert E. Lee. Of course, they're going to report on it. I'm going to chime in. Let's see what they have to say.
The headlines for Sunday morning, the 13th of August, 2017. It's been a violent weekend in Charlottesville, Virginia. At least 3 people are dead after hundreds of white nationalists, neo-Nazis, and Ku Klux Klan members.
When they say white nationalists, neo-Nazis, and Ku Klux Klan members, that's really just code word for white trash. All right? That's all those groups are, is white trash. And it's really based on the fact that they're low-level Caucasians, and they're upset that they've been written out of the deal of the white elite. They're mad that they have not been included. They're not really informed, and they're not put in the position to excel. So they're basically mad, and they join these type of groups. To be quite honest with you, they're the Caucasian version of a lot of these black Pan-African groups. I know a lot of people are gonna get mad. How could you equate that? You know, we being oppressed. Look, you're either part of the truth or you're part of a lie. All right, and most of these Pan-Africanist black power groups are very, very ignorant, and they're totally based in emotion, a lot like these white nationalist groups. All right, but I'll expound on that as we go through this clip.
Was clashed with counter-protesters in the historic southern college town. David Begnaud is there. Confrontations between...
Damn, my man looked like Captain America. The man had a shield in his hand. The hell's going on?
Between white nationalists.
I'm gonna rewind that back.
In the historic southern college town, David Begnaud is there. Confrontations.
Oh man, this is Captain America. They doing mixed martial arts out there. They fighting like chicks, just flailing their arms. Look at this. All these Caucasians this is basically Caucasian liberals against a white trash that's mad that they will cut out the deal. Where were all these pro-black people like that so militant that's on the internet all damn day talking about black power and Hotep and everybody's a coon? Where was they at? How come they haven't flown down to Charlottesville?
Between white nationalists and counter-protesters grew increasingly angry throughout Saturday morning. Then in mid-afternoon, a driver plowed into a crowd of people.
Now look at this shit. This is what should happen to every so-called pro-black dude, or liberal black, I should say. Not pro-black, liberal black. Because the liberal blacks are normally the ones who are galvanized by the ideologies of liberal Caucasians. Right? Now, I know that I'm sure that there's going to be a couple guys in the comments. This is a hoax. This is all CGI. All right? They all computer generated. That didn't really happen. This whole event is a hoax. But no, this really happened. And, brothers got to stop with all that everything is a hoax shit. There are hoaxes. There are events that are staged, what they call psyops. There's no doubt about that. But no, everything is not a hoax. And a lot of times the reason why brothers want to make everything out to be a hoax, certain brothers, not every brother, but certain brothers, is because it makes them feel empowered, number one, to feel like they have control over every event, to say that it's a hoax. But also because a lot of cats are lazy-brained. It's easier to call everything a hoax than to actually do real research. And what you'll find is that most of the cats that accuse everything of being a hoax are very uninformed, and they're very lax. But, just looking at this vehicle and the license plate, 1111, that is the number for mind activation. So it would not shock me at all if the driver of this vehicle was an asset that was put in motion to cause chaos, to be an agent of chaos. And if you look in the upper left, right above the head of this gentleman who's in the foreground with the black hat and the gray T-shirt, right above his head looked like the kneecap of another so-called liberal black who was tossed up in the air. And this is what you get for following behind. Like I said before, the tinfoil hat blacks, they normally get their ideologies from the tinfoil hat Caucasians. The liberal blacks, they get their thoughts from the liberal Caucasians. All right? Bible tells you have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness. Okay? That's what you get for following behind them. And you see, oh, well, you guys might not be able to see it, but I see a sign that says Black Lives Matter, and they have the so-called peace, what they call Nero's cross there, or the peace sign, right? Which is a satanic symbol, or Luciferian symbol, I should say. But it's basically a bunch of Caucasian socialists / anarchists with the silly Negroes that follow them against the white trash. But let's see what else they have to say. Look at this dude going in reverse like the Knight Rider.
One person was killed. Dozens more were injured. Police later arrested that driver, identified as 20-year-old James Alex Fields Jr. of Ohio.
Now, this guy, James Alex Fields Jr., just looking him up real quick, I saw that he recently just spent some time in the military. Like I stated, I noticed that on his license plate, they had the number 1111. That is the number for mind activation. So it would not surprise me once again if this man was an MK asset, an agent of chaos. Very similar to the cat that was over there in Times Square about a month and a half ago, who I also said was clearly an MK asset. I can't remember the man's name. You brothers can go, or sisters, or whoever's watching the video. You can go look up the video. I can't remember the man's name. It was a Hispanic cat from the Bronx in New York. He decided that he was going to go to Times Square and just drive through everybody. I had a couple of guys say that it was a hoax. And that's why, like I said, I'm sure that people will come on and say that this is a hoax too. But no, they have certain MK assets out there to cause chaos when need be, particularly in crowded areas. I'm sure that he will most likely claim that he doesn't really have any remembrance of that moment or why he did what he did. And the only other alternative is that he joined the military in order to get military training to join one of these white nationalist groups.
Friday night, hundreds of torch-carrying white nationalists marched through the University of Virginia campus.
Now, the reason why they carry those white torches, why they carry those torches in their right hands is because those torches represent illumination. Right? What do I mean by that? These white nationalist groups they believe and adhere to something called neo-paganism. Neo-paganism is basically a rejection of a lot of the beliefs and the rituals of the Christian church. And it's an attempt by them to go back to what they feel like their ancestral religious and cultural beliefs were, which is basically Celtic paganism, quote unquote. That's why I align it to the Caucasian version of a lot of what the Pan-Africanists are doing. It's equally delusional because the ancient Celts, number one, were so-called black people. All right. The ancient Celts were a mixture of the Canaanites, or as they're known in conventional history, the Phoenicians, and the Israelites. All right. Or as they're known today as so-called blacks of North, Central, South America, for the most part. All right. They mixed together and they became known as the Celts. OK, so they're the ones who invented a lot of the rituals that are practiced or that were practiced that are known today as neo-paganism. A lot of the holidays that are celebrated amongst the Wiccans and the Celtic Druids, or whatever you want to call them, the modernist Celtic Druids, they come from the ancient Celts who, like I said, were so-called black people. All right. So that's where a lot of that comes from. And once again, the torch represents the illumination, the knowledge and the wisdom that was taught to the world by Cush, his son Nimrod, and their wife, Semiramis. Why do I say their wife? Because both the father and the son shared the same wife, who also happened to be the mother of Nimrod. Okay? But we'll go a little further in as we go along.
The university that was founded by Thomas Jefferson. They were protesting the decision to remove a statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee from a Charlottesville park.
Robert E. Lee also was a slave owner. By all intents, he was extremely cruel to his slaves. And he also came from, basically the American version of what's known as the landed gentry, which is like nobility. All right, his forefather who came over here was known as the immigrant. And he became a very affluent landowner Robert E. Lee also was related to Zachary Taylor, a former president. And by most accounts, he wasn't a very good general. And he really wanted the South to divest any interest in the Civil War after it was over. But they kind of reinvigorated it after they started to glamorize the reason why they fought the Civil War. And that statue was put up in 1924. I mentioned this a while ago. I think I mentioned this on a previous video where they were protesting the removal of the statues. I think it was in New Orleans. You know, most of these Confederate statues did not even go up in the aftermath of the Civil War. They went up in like the 1920s. All right, when you had a lot of white nationalist groups from back then that was springing up from the 1870s to the 1920s. The Klan, right, the Ku Klux Klan, a lot of other groups. The Klan was originally known as the Knights of the Golden Circle, which was a Masonic fraternal group. And it was funded by the international bankers to cause disharmony and chaos, to cause a secession so that they could create a national bank in the United States and a national bank within each territory amongst the seceded states. Of course, that didn't work. That failed. All right. But the modern day Klan is basically just to attract white trash into a bastardized version of the Celtic religions. That's why you have their leaders are known as the Grand Wizard and the Grand Dragon. A lot of so-called blacks say, well, the Klan, they're Christian. They believe in the Bible. No, they don't. Their leaders are known as Grand Wizards. All right. The Bible tells you that you're supposed to kill a wizard. All right. So no, that it has nothing to do with that. That's a lie.
If you do not disperse immediately.
As a matter of fact, Robert E. Lee, I believe his father or his grandfather was also a hero in the Revolutionary War. Lightfoot Lee. I can't remember if it was his dad or his granddad. It must have been his granddad.
You will be arrested.
President Donald Trump urged restraint.
We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides.
Mr. President, do you want the support of these white nationalist groups who say they support you, Mr. President?
They fuck with Trump like he's a black dude. So are you not going to come hard against them because you need their votes?
Charlottesville Mayor Michael Signer said Trump himself had to shoulder some of the blame for the nation's tense racial climate.
Bullshit, because the racial climate was just as tense under Obama, right? It was under Obama that you had the shooting of Philando Castile and you had the shooting of Alton Sterling, and he did nothing about it because he didn't care to do anything about it, right? The only thing is that Trump is a lightning rod for so-called racial rhetoric from a bunch of emotional so-called black people and a lot of emotional and manipulative liberal Caucasians. And that's all it is to it.
This tide of hatred and of intolerance and of bigotry that has come to us and that has marched down with torches the lawn of one of the founders of democracy, it is brought here by outsiders and it's brought here by people.
Bullshit. There's plenty of racists in Virginia. It ain't brought there by outsiders. There's plenty of racists over there in Virginia
Who belong in the trash heap of history with these ideas. There is a very sad and regrettable coarseness in our politics. And
your ass is probably a racist. You might be a member of one of those groups. You just don't want it to come out. A lot of these, and I mentioned this when I did the video with Richard Pryor and the toy. A lot of these politicians receive their funding from white nationalist groups. And this is why I told so-called black people before, you're not supposed to be marching and begging for politicians to do right by you. When you have a strong culture and you have a community that can develop its own economy, then you put your own politicians in office and you tell them this is what you're going to do. All right. You're not supposed to ask a politician to do anything. You tell them. That's why they're called a public servant. They do what you tell them when you have power. When you have no power, you have to ask them. When you have power, you tell them. That's how it goes. But so-called black people do not have a ruling class mentality. That's why they don't understand that. That's why I have all these people always up in my comments, these bitter ass, silly, simple-minded pro-blacks talking all this nonsense because they don't understand how the world works. They don't understand how the money system works. But to understand the money system, you got to have a strong culture, which our people don't have. They just talk shit all goddamn day.
And Virginia's governor, Terry McAuliffe, who declared a state of emergency, told the white supremacists, many of whom were from out of town, to go home.
You are not wanted in this great Commonwealth. Shame on you.
Steve, the park where the protest took place yesterday was reopened to the public.
That you're not wanted? Shame on you. You're not wanted unless I need you. And I may need you in a couple months, but you're not wanted right now.
This morning. After the car crashed into the crowd yesterday, there had been a state police helicopter hovering over the crowd, keeping an eye on them.
This is the same guy who was interviewing that little homosexual clothing designer. This dude, man. Damn pedophile, allegedly. He was eyeing up that little black boy, man. This dude, I gotta keep my eye on him.
It crashed just outside of town. 2 state troopers on board were killed.
That's very interesting. That helicopter crashed right outside of the rally. I wonder if it was a malfunction or was it shot down. What were the chances on the day of that rally that helicopter would go down like that?
Late last night, the U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced that the U.S. Justice Department has opened a federal civil rights investigation into what happened here.
Well, when they say that they're going to open or have opened a federal civil rights investigation, are they talking about the car that plowed through the crowd of people, or are they talking about the helicopter that went down? Because if they're talking about the helicopter that went down, as well as the car, that would, of course, imply that the helicopter was taken down purposefully. Well, we'll see.
Correspondent David Begnaud in Charlottesville. Thank you.
So let's see what else they have to say about this story.
The FBI has launched a civil rights investigation into the deadly car attack that happened during violent protests in Virginia. Authorities say 1 woman was killed and at least 35 others injured when a driver rammed into a crowd in Charlottesville.
1 person killed and at least 35 others injured. 36. 3 sixes.
2 state troopers whose helicopter crashed while they monitored the protest also died. CBS 2's Rena Roy reports. A group of people were chanting and marching through the bustling college town near the University of Virginia campus when this car plows right into them. People running for safety as the car sped away in reverse.
And look at that. Look, like a sneaker flipped out the car. It's probably that Negro that he ran over. Was that an Air Jordan? Let me see.
Others tending to people running for safety as the car sped.
Oh, there go that sneaker. Yeah, he ran over somebody real good. He ran over this one of them black people he ran over.
Sped away in reverse, others tending to victims as they struggled on the sidewalk before they were taken to a local hospital for...
Brothers, do not get involved with these liberal ass protests, man. I remember when they had that Occupy Wall Street shit. You know, you see a lot of stupid ass liberal young black men getting involved with that. Normally, why? Because they follow behind the liberal black woman. Do not follow behind the liberal black woman, man. Okay? Do not follow behind them. The liberal black woman follows behind the liberal Caucasian. Leave it alone.
For treatment. The driver, now identified by police as James Alex Fields Jr. of Ohio. He's facing several charges, including second-degree murder.
To really realize that somebody possibly just died right in front of us and it was intentional.
This is your prototypical liberal Caucasian man. Clearly, most likely a homosexual, allegedly. All right? It's like these brothers that have been harassing me about this flat earth shit, you know? And I'm still in the midst of going through all the data, but one thing that, of course, that's as usual with a lot of these dudes, they're falling behind a so-called liberal Caucasian. All right, it is what it is. What's this guy's name? Dubé. Wasn't it Eric Dubé? Cross-dressing Caucasian. This is the guy that most of these flat Earth brothers they're getting their info from. Unbelievable.
And then see the shoes and the pools of blood on the ground and the debris. I'm still shaking from it right now just thinking about it.
Now look at that symbol right there, brothers. You know what that symbol is? That's known as the sun wheel. All right? That is a quote unquote occult symbol. That's part of their neo-paganist belief system. That's known as the sun wheel or the black sun. That's in veneration of the planet Saturn. All right, and that's also in veneration of the actual sun. That goes back to that goes back to the Germanic tribes, and of course the Germanic tribes, they got a lot of those symbols from Babylon. I mentioned this before. The bulk of the Germanic tribes were the Israelites who left the Babylonian captivity and wandered upward instead of back into Israel. Okay, so when if you ever do any research on the black sun, or the sun wheel as that symbol is called, that was a symbol for the Nazis, the SS. Okay, the Nazis, they believed in the occult, and they also believed in conjuring spirits. They called it the Viril power, if I remember correctly. V as in Victor, RIL. All right. They believed that certain spirits will communicate with them and give them ideas for technology. All right. One of the main people who adhered to that was a man named Werner von Braun, who ended up heading the NASA space program. And, I have a lot of cats that come and they comment about how NASA's is a scam and NASA is a hoax. Well, I'm doing a video on NASA relatively soon. The rockets that Werner von Braun and people like Jack Parsons and Theodore von Karman that they tested were very real. They were not hoaxes. All right. Whether you believe that they were actually able to ascend into orbit or not, that's up to you. I like to go by real research. I don't like to repeat what somebody else says. A lot of brothers are repeaters. That's one of the reasons why I call this channel a pro-truth channel. It's not a pro-black channel. You know why? Because pro-black dudes are a lot like these white nationalists. They love lies. They like to lie to themselves and everybody else. I don't have time for lies. All right? I like research. I like things that are quantifiable and qualifiable. All right. But to get back to the point, this symbol represents the worship of the sun and the worship of Saturn. Who is Saturn? Right? Saturn, the name Saturn means the hidden god. Okay. He was also, and I've mentioned this many times before, he was known in Greece as Kronos. Right? The name Kronos means the horned god. That's where you get the symbol for Satan as having two horns from. Right? Satan, the colloquial Satan that we know about, is not the Satan of the Bible. All the Satan of the Bible are the angels that operate on the left-hand side of the Most High. Okay? Christ is on the right-hand side. Satan and his angels are on the left-hand side. Both sides must adhere to the commands of the Most High. Right? That's in the spiritual world. In the physical world, the manifestation of Satan that we see in films and pop culture, that represents the god Pan. Okay? Pan became known in the Celtic mythology as Cernunnos or Herne, H-E-R, and as in Nancy E. Right? A lot of times they try to act like they don't know why in the Celtic pantheon he was known as Herne. That's just an allusion to his name in Greece as Hermes, H-E-R-M-E-S. What does the name Hermes mean? The name Hermes means the son of Ham. Who was the son of Ham? Cush. All right. That's why Hermes is known as the messenger god, the interpreter god, the god of language, the god of teaching, the god of astronomy, the god of mathematics. That's what Cush taught. Okay. He was known in Egypt as Manes. Right. As when he was venerated as the goat god, he was known as in Egypt as Khnum, K-H-N-U-M, or in Greece as Pan. It's why I talk about Pan so much. Right? In the British Isles, he was known as Cernunnos. C as in Charlie, E-R. I believe it's N-U-N-N-O-S. Okay? The stag god, the god with the horns. Once again, horns represents power. Okay? All this is talking about the same God. All right? I saw a brother ask me about doing a video on Christmas. I'll probably do one around the Christmas time, but when you talk about Christmas, the real name is Saturnalia. Why is that? Because it's in veneration of the god Saturn. What does Christmas represent? The winter solstice, the disappearance of the sun and the re-emergence of the sun. The sun disappears on the winter solstice around December 21st. It comes back around December 24th. All right. That's why we celebrate what on December 24th? Christmas Eve, right? Then December 25th, we have Christmas, the return of the sun. In the Celtic mythologies, he was worshipped as the Oak King and the Holly King, right? They said that the Oak King, of course, like the oak tree, the Oak King would rule from the winter solstice to the summer solstice. Who was that? That is Cush. From the summer solstice to the winter solstice, he ruled as the Holly King, Holly. Who is that? That's Nimrod. They ruled together, right? They said those were the two aspects of Cernunnos. That's why I always talk about Cush and Nimrod, right? And they said when the Oak King ruled from the winter solstice to the summer solstice, the height of his rulership was May 1st. What is May 1st? May Day or Beltane. Remember I mentioned Beltane, the god Bel. That was the Babylonian name for Cush. Okay? The name Bel means Lord. Or in the Semitic culture, Baal, B-A-A-L. The bull god, right? Remember, the bull has horns. What do you do to the bull god? Or for the bull god, you sacrifice your child, right? He demands a blood sacrifice. That's why on Christmas or Saturnalia, they have that term, you have to throw a Yule log on the fire. The word Yule, Y-U-L-E, that means child. Okay? That's a metaphor. When you throw a Yule log on the fire, that's you throwing a child into the fire to burn for Baal or Saturn. Or as he was also known as Sol Invictus, the unconquerable sun. Okay? Cush and Nimrod, the father and the son, they taught all these demonic principles to the masses, to the different nations, and they're still celebrated today. Right? Remember, like I said, the Holly King ruled from summer solstice to winter solstice. That's Nimrod. That's why and the Holly King or the wood of the holly tree, that's what the Celtic Druids would use to make their magic wand. That's why when they started the entertainment industry in California, what did they call it? They called it Hollywood. The job of Hollywood is to cast spells on the people. All right. So that's why they use these symbols, brothers. All right. It all goes back to Cush and Nimrod and their veneration. And the Oak King and the Holly King, they would fight over the mother goddess, that being Semiramis. Okay? We just had a major holiday, a Celtic holiday. I mentioned it in my Juve video, known as Lughnasadh. Right? Lughnasadh is another name for Cush. Okay? That's one of the Celtic names for Cush.
Nationalists plan this Unite the Right rally in response to the city's decision to remove a statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. Counter-protesters showed up, the two sides clashing.
The Unite the Right rallyists came here looking for battle. They came with weapons, they came with shields, they came with pepper spray, and we're looking for any opportunity to... Right, but where were all the pro-blacks, all the pro-blackity black dudes that talk all that shit on the internet? Why wasn't they down there? I see white liberals fighting with white nationalists. Where are all the pro-black dudes? To surround and attack people.
Hundreds of officers in riot gear rushing to clear the crowds on the
They go to stormtroopers.
the ground, and up in the air, Virginia State Police choppers were also on guard. But police say one crashed, killing Lieutenant H.J. Cullen and Trooper Pilot Burke M.M. Bates.
We saw the helicopter kind of go into a sort of spinning, tumbling dive, and it went down.
The governor of Virginia condemned the violence.
I have a message to all the white supremacists.
You ain't got a message for shit. You just here talking shit. You're a white supremacist your damn self, allegedly.
And the Nazis who came into Charlottesville today.
Next time you come, call me first. I'll have you over.
Our message is plain and simple. Go home. You are not wanted in this great Commonwealth.
President Trump.
His voice all cracking. Sound like a damn bitch. Scared to death.
Trump also spoke out from Bedminster, New Jersey.
We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides.
The Charlottesville mayor also spoke at a press conference urging people to go home to their families. Meanwhile, the suspect, James Alex Fields Jr., is expected to face a judge on Monday. In the newsroom, Rena Roy, CBS 2 News.
And it'll be interesting to see if he claims to remember what he did or if he claims to have just blacked out. That's what I'm going to be looking for. Like I said, when I see anything like that, I'm thinking possible asset. But he could also just be a guy who's at his wit's end and join the military to learn some militaristic tactics to take back to one of his white nationalist groups, which I said is totally based in what they call neo-paganism, right? Or like the worship of Wotan, right? Wotan. That's just a Celtic way of saying Odin. Who is Odin? Odin is Cush. All right? Brothers, is all talking about the same people. Okay? Odin is Cush. Odin is just the Norse mythological way of saying Adon. Odin, Adon. Adon is a Greek word that means Lord. Pardon me. Well, it really comes from the Hebrew, but in the Greek it became Adonis. It means Lord. Right? Like brothers who are familiar with the scriptures, Adonai just means Lord.
Virginia State Police arrested 3 men in connection with all that violence. One of them is from Virginia. The other 2 are from Tennessee and Florida.
Right. Well, anyway, brothers, that's basically it. I just wanted to cover this topic. To me, that's that whole thing. That was really nothing. That involved hundreds of people. When it gets bad, it's going to involve a lot more than that. But as you can see, you have a lot of Caucasian liberals going against a lot of white trash, what you call white extremists or white nationalists. But that's nothing, man. Their population, the white nationalist population, is hugest just west of the Mississippi. Like in those areas like Wyoming and Idaho and those places. Those places, they wouldn't even march. They don't give a shit. They just will keep you out of their state. Okay? But once again, when you see symbols like that, what they call the rune or the sun wheel, that's in veneration of the Varel Society, also known as the Thule Society, led by a man named Dietrich Eckhart, if I remember correctly. All right? All those things inspired Hitler to form what he called the Nazis, and then they had an inner circle known as the SS. And they were dealing purely with witchcraft and conjuring. But you had, like I said, you had other people who were dealing with that. People like Jack Parsons and what's this chick name? Marjorie Cameron. This dude who started Dianetics, L. Ron Hubbard. But all that is another story for another day. All right, but anyway, brothers, peace.